Thoughts become things. Jumbo, fellow adventurers, time for a spiritual tune-up. This one's a little on the heavy side, but hey, we're here to unravel all mysteries and to bring your metaphysical questions down to earth for traction. Mike, how does one overcome feelings of guilt? Ooh. All right, well, some really good news here, and this is not a whitewash by any means. You got to hear this one all the way out, because I know what some will think. He's blaming the victims. No, 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 I would not do that. But guilt, as is typically practiced in these sacred jungles of time and space at this early juncture of our evolution, is a horrific device of self-torture. That doesn't mean we can't learn from mistakes we've made. That doesn't mean there weren't mistakes. That doesn't mean there's not a higher path. But the best I ever read on guilt, which was like 30 years ago, the Seth material, I often quote the Seth information dictated, channeled by the late Jane Roberts. Seth says there's natural guilt and there's artificial guilt. The guilt you're talking about is artificial guilt. It's a guilt that assumes things that are completely false in these sacred jungles of time and space. Natural guilt, on the other hand, is just a device to learn that the stove is hot, that you can hurt somebody's feelings, that, every juncture in the road warrants some reflection and decision, and not just random haphazard, hey, look at me, everybody, don't I rock, as you bulldoze through the feelings of your friends and family and strangers. So let's talk about the false assumptions laden with artificial guilt, which is the whole purpose of this question, which is the whole problem with guilt as it is experienced in this day and age. Number one, guilt means you think you could have done better. Now, we could split that hair a good number of ways, but the reality is you couldn't, or you would have. Given what you knew at the time, you did the best you could. You almost went the other way and it would have been roses, but you didn't because you couldn't. Give that to yourself. Nobody came here to be perfect. Everybody came here to learn. Everybody came here because they knew that they would slip and fall and get back up, and nothing better than getting to the top of the mountain than having been lost first. So once you get lost because you made some wrong turns, don't blame yourself with guilt and think, look, that was supposed to happen. It was almost inevitable. Somebody might say, fairly and rightly so, that anyone else in your shoes at that juncture would have done the same. Jesus and Buddha in your shoes at that juncture would have done exactly as you had done. Of course, they wouldn't be Jesus or Buddha, they'd be you. That's the point. You're you. No one else can judge. Not even you should condemn. You can learn from the things that you wish you had done differently and make use of that wisdom because you've got forever, baby. All right, so don't think you could have done better. You can now do better in the future. But back then, it's water under the bridge. You did the best you could with what you knew at the time. Number two, artificial guilt usually means that you think those involved, other people affected by your irrational, premature, juvenile decisions, didn't have a choice to be within your reach. Now, this is so slippery and such a precarious part of this conversation. Please don't take it out of context. I am not blaming the victim. I don't believe in victims. I believe in volunteers. We all know the stage ahead of time, not just for our lives, but for each day before us. And we know what these probabilities are, and in one way or another, they serve us, even though they can be ugly, even though they can be disgusting, even though they can be hideous. And that does not justify what other people do to other people, does not justify horrendous decisions you've made in your immaturity that hurt other people. I mean, I'm not saying it's okay in the sense that could be construed. It's not okay. It was wrong. And if somebody's violated you, press charges, file a lawsuit, do all of those things with love in your heart. But we all know the terrain ahead. We knew that this would be the wild, wild west, the jungles of time and space in their early dawn, when man, woman, and child were running around like crazy folks, thinking that life is happening to them. And we knew that they'd be making some bad decisions. We knew we might make some really bad decisions, but it was all being played out in the heart of God, and that we still would have eternity before us with these lessons under our belt. So those involved in whatever transpired for which you now feel guilt, that doesn't mean don't apologize to them. That doesn't mean don't make amends. Do make amends. That doesn't mean don't make reparations. Do make reparations. But in the deepest scheme of things, everyone here is a willing participant, knowing that some bad stuff might go down, but wanting to be here in spite of that, for all the good, all the love, all the glory. This is not blaming the victim. Check out the earlier spiritual tune-ups that are titled Blame the Victim, ? Where I talk in depth about how these metaphysical concepts are not blaming anybody for anything. Okay, we're all here manifesting intentionally or sometimes unintentionally. The third flaw to artificial guilt means there's a presumption that because of what happened, the future is now tarnished. Now, again, we can split hairs. And maybe you landed in the hospital, or somebody landed in the hospital, or somebody's in jail, or somebody passed. But those somebodies, including you, have forever. You could live 1,000,000 billion more lifetimes, and that would just be the beginning of forever. That does not diminish the value of any single life. That does not mean that violations or worse are okay. They're not okay. Okay, I am not contradicting myself. There just needs to be a spiritual lens here to sense that there is order. Doesn't put a happy smiley face on it, but at least we can at some level know that there was order, there's healing involved, there's love, and there's forever. So the idea that the future is tarnished, not in the grand scheme of things. There was a PS to a note from the universe that hit this point. No trifling of the past, no matter how great, can tarnish the brilliance of eternity. As Richard Bach said in his masterpiece, Illusions, that life is your workbook. Go ahead and muck it up. Scribble on the page. Learn what you want to learn, because you do want to learn stuff. It's your workbook. It is not reality as we typically think of reality. Now, I'm not diminishing the beauty of every single day. I still want all of my beautiful days. But it's easy to eat of the forbidden fruit and see things a little bit more fatally than they need to be seen. That was a tricky one. Got some more tricky questions? Ask them below on Facebook or Instagram. And please be sure to check out the archives. Excuse-moi. Live broadcast. Okay. Please be sure to check out the link below this video box on Facebook will take you to the Facebook page of mine, where 200 plus earlier spiritual tune-ups can all be watched for free. Check them out, see what resonates with you, share them with friends you might think will benefit from them. Also on Instagram, there is Instagram Gallery, and there are 200 plus of these spiritual tune-ups. And of course, these are all carried over to YouTube as well, 200 plus. Ask your questions below. Have an amazing Thursday. Yay. Well, some don't have work tomorrow, some don't have school. For you, it's Thursday, all right? I will be here tomorrow morning. See you, same time, same place. Tally-ho, Audra, Alexandra, Winnie, Barbara. Thanks for being on Facebook. Animal Reiki Lady, Lori, in my tiny flower box. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Tally-ho, amigos. Hasta